Hello and welcome back to the channel. In today's video, we are starting an important topic, converting between fractions, decimals, and percent. And I want to ask you something. Have you ever written a test and scored 15 out of 20? Or have you ever seen 50% discount in a shop? Or have you ever worked with 0.5 in calculations? Then I want to assure you that all these are connected. And today, we will focus only on converting fractions into decimals and percent. So, let's get right into it. But before that, I want you to take note of these key rules. These rules are very important before we dive in to look at some solved examples. Now, in converting fraction to decimals, this is what you are supposed to do. The numerator should be divided by the denominator. Assuming you have a fraction of maybe 3 over 4, and then you are to what? Convert that into decimals. You have to divide the 3 by what? 4. And then use the long division to complete it. Alright. So that is that. And as we solve more examples, you will understand that better. In the second rule, if you are to convert fraction to percent, the first thing to do is to convert the number first to decimal. Then you multiply by 100, and then you arrive at the answer. Okay? So after multiplying by 100, you add the percent sign. Okay. So that is that. Let's look at some solved examples. Remember these rules very carefully, because this is what we are coming to apply to solve some examples under converting fractions to decimals and percentage. All right, so let's look at example number 1. So convert 3 over 4. Convert 3 over 4 to decimal and percent. To decimal and percent. All right, so solution. As the rule states, if you are to convert a fraction to decimal and percent, the first thing to do is to convert the fraction to decimals. So we have 3 over 4, which we will now convert to a division form. So the numerator will be divided by what? The denominator. And then there is a rule here you have to understand, that since the dividend is less than the divisor, the dividend in this case is 3 and the divisor is 4, you add zeros to the, you add a decimal point and then add zeros to the dividend. Please, you can add as many zeros to 8 as you can, because it doesn't change the value of the number. So we have 3.00 divided by what? 4. So you then now use the long division sign to solve your problem. So we have the dividend inside, which is 3.00, and then we have the divisor outside, which is 4. So in solving this, the first thing to ask yourself is there any number that you multiply by 4 to give you 3? There is absolutely no number. So you put 0 point. Then you use the 4 to multiply the 0, giving you 0. Then you subtract. Then you have 3 minus 0, giving you 3. Then you bring down this 0 to the 3, making 30. 4 goes into 30 7 times. 4 times 7, you have 28. Then you do your subtraction, you have what? 2, remainder. And you bring, because 4 cannot go into 2, or there is no number that can multiply the 4 to give you 2, you bring down what? Your 0 again. As I said, you can add as many zeros to 8 as you can. If you are not getting a zero remainder, you keep adding zero until you arrive at that. 4 goes into 20 5 times. So we have 5. 4 times 5, we have 20. So if you do your subtraction, you arrive at 0 as your remainder. So the moment you get 0 as your remainder, then we now know that we have arrived at our answer peacefully. So therefore, 3 over 4 to decimals is equal to what? 0.75. Now we are not done. Now we are to convert this same number into percent. And in converting to percentage, we just multiply by what? 100. So in converting that to percent, you just multiply by what? 100. And then you arrive at your answer. Okay, so let's continue here. So we have 0.75 as our answer in decimals. So we multiply that by converting to percent. So we have 0.75 times what? 100. Now you move the decimal point the number of zeros times. Since 100 is having 2 zeros, you move the decimal point to the right 2 times. So 0.75, you move it twice. So 1, 2. So the decimal point is now here. So this will give us what? 75. Therefore, 3 over 4 to 0.75 and then to what? 75. You add your percent sign. So this answer gives us what? 75%. I hope that is clear. Okay. So let's look at our second solution and then we move on from there. Okay. We have example number 2. You can pause the video and try this one and then come back and confirm if your answer is correct. So we have 2 over 5 to decimal and percent. So example number 2, convert 2 over 5 to decimals and percent. So here, the first thing to do is to convert it into decimals. So 2 over 5 into decimal will be 2 divided by 5. This is a division sign. And then because the dividend is less than the divisor, you add zeros. You add a decimal point, then you add zeros to it. You can add as many zeros as you can because it doesn't change what? The value of the digit. Then you now use what? Long division to arrive at your answer. You write a dividend inside, 2.000. Then you write your divisor outside. So is there any number that can multiply 5 to give you 2? No. So 5 cannot go into 2. So you write your 0, bring your decimal point. Then 5 times 0 gives us what? 0. Any number multiplied by 0 is 0. And then 2 minus 0 is 2. And bring down what? Your zeros here. 1 to attach to the 2, making 20. 5 goes into 20 4 times. 5 times 4, 20. You do a subtraction. 20 minus 20 is 0. So we now have our answer to be what? 0.4. 0.4. Now, we move on to convert this into what? Percent. So this to percent, we have 0.4 times what? 100. Then you move the decimal point how many times? 2 times. So here you stand here. 1, 2. The decimal point is now here. So we now have 4, 0. Because you have to fill this empty space with 0. So you add your percent sign. Therefore, 2 over 5 is equal to 0.4 in a decimal, and then it's also equal to 40%. So that is it. This is how you arrive at the conversion of fractions to decimals and percentage. So today we have looked at fractions, how to convert them to decimals, and then we also see some key rules that we have to follow in converting fractions to decimals. And I believe that you'll be able to solve more questions on that. All right, so let's have our try questions. You have to try your hands on the following questions and know that this is going to help you. And then you come back, you pause the video, solve it, come back and check if your answer is correct, because I'll be providing you with the answers. All right, so we have try question 1. Convert 1/2 to decimal and percent. And then 2, convert 4/5 to decimal and percent. And then the final try question is convert 7/10 to decimal and percent. So, and the answers to these problems, we have the first one. Please don't just look at the answer. You have to try it and come and what? Confirm your answer, okay? Answer key. We have number 1, 0.5, and then 50%. And then number 2, we have 0.8, and then 80%. And then number 3, we have 0.7, and then 70%. All right, so that is it. You have now learned how to convert fractions into decimals and percent. But remember to practice. Divide to get decimals, multiply by 100 to get what? Percent. And in our part 2 of this video, you will learn how to convert decimals into what? Fractions and percent. Thank you for watching, and then I will see you in the next lesson. God bless you. Bye-bye.